WOLFPACK, what is going on? It's your boy, the Wolf of Roto Street, rotostreetjournal.com, where we breed and feed fantasy wolves, here with your Week 16, Week 16 preview, the fantasy championship, the big dance. We are here, we have arrived, and it is time to go. I will get you ready with all your usual higher, lower Hail Marys, and of course your injury report will be in there, and that's obviously the most important, especially with crucial names to preview, like Dalvin Cook, like Josh Jacobs, all that great stuff. But we are here for you in the biggest moment of the season. It all comes down to this. Nothing else matters besides titles. No one will remember your second place finish. So if you're tuned in, hopefully that means you have made it as far as Week 16 and you are ready to get that dub. And I will make sure I will do everything I can, answer all your sit starts, get them on in, whether you're tuned in on the podcast, Fantasy Fullback Dive, we paved that path to 2019 titles, or on the live broadcast on Facebook now, WOLFPACK, it is time to get it done. Let's dive right into it because we got a ton to cover, beginning with our injury report, then we'll hit the higher, lower Hail Marys, and of course all your sit start questions, get them on in, that feeds the show, that feeds me, that's why I'm here, to get you that personalized special advice to hopefully get those lineups perfect. Let's dig in. Starting at the top here, Dalvin Cook, the biggest note of the week. He is unlikely to suit up, according to Adam Schefter, in Week 16 with a juicy matchup against the Packers on deck. He has carried you to this point, probably in the championship game because of Dalvin Cook, and now he's going to abandon you when you need him the most. It sucks, but that's kind of what happens with Dalvin Cook. And ultimately, not a great spot to have him abandon you, obviously, in Week 16. What's up, Giuseppe? Let me know if the audio sounds any better here. I'm trying to fix it up. Not sure what's going on here with the audio issues, so I'm trying to make sure it gets better here, but ultimately I have no clue why it sucks on this broadcast sometimes. But hopefully it gets better here. And if not, sorry about that, folks. But yeah, let's get these shifts, Giuseppe. I completely agree. So Dalvin Cook. What do you do if this guy is abandoning you when you need him the most? Well, hopefully you got Mike Boone. He's now 45% owned, so ultimately that's probably all the owners in Week 16. And if not, hopefully you're blocking any of your opponents from getting him, because that matchup with the Green Bay Packers is completely juicy. And fifth most points to running backs ever since trading Mike Daniels. That defense has been a shell of itself. That zone blocking scheme is so money for any running back that has been there. So I am a huge fan of Mike Boone if he's the guy. You also got to track Alex Madison, though. He did not practice today, an ankle injury, so he sat. My guess is if he does play, and Mike Zimmer did say he has a good chance to suit up, my guess is Madison would end up being the guy. He served as that clear-cut number 2 all year to Dalvin Cook, and I don't expect that to just go away. So ultimately, I like Madison. If he's the one, I think he would get the lion's share. But if not, Mike Boone, a very athletic guy. We saw him tear up the preseason. Great acceleration. He fits the zone blocking scheme perfect because he really can just find those creases. And the acceleration, again, you saw it on all the chunk plays he was ripping off. He scored 2 touchdowns last week. So he's got that nice little nose for the end zone. I think he'd be a great bet for another couple scores. Ultimately, they play on Monday night, too. So if you have Cook or Boone, you got to figure it out. Hopefully you have those backup plans ready for Dalvin Cook. If not, you probably have to put someone in on Sunday to get your replacement plan ready, because he seems unlikely to go. And granted, Cook did say he's going through his normal preparation. He hopes to be out there. And you just can't trust anything that comes out of Zimmer or Cook's mouth at this point, though. So ultimately, I expect to be without him, and I think you got to have Mike Boone ready on deck. Amir Abdullah will be the next backup there, and I guess if you're truly disgustingly desperate, he's an option, but ultimately look to Boone first. I'd also stash Madison just to have both guys have the backfield on lock here. Thanks, guys, for commenting on the audio, too. That's okay. Even if there's a little bit of echo, apologize for that. I have no idea why it does that stupid shit. Next on the list, though, if you need a Dalvin Cook replacement plan, you missed out on Boone, your opponent is blocking him, Josh Jacobs is a great, he's going to be out, so DeAndre Washington, is going to be a very solid fill-in for you here. If Josh Jacobs is already ruled out. No, it's not a Dalvin Cook situation. And last time Jacobs sat, DeAndre Washington played 63% of the snaps, logged 18.5 PPR, over 20 PPR fantasy points. It wasn't a good game script for just the lead back, the early down grinder. and he still saw 7 targets despite the team going down big, going down early. So he ultimately inherited that just clear-cut 3-down horse roll with Jalen Richard mixing in quietly on some downs, a couple catches there. So I love DeAndre Washington up to running back 19 in my rankings. If you need that Cook emergency replacement plan, he's still out there in nearly 70% of leagues, only 33% owned right now. At minimum, I'd block your opponent should you have Dalvin Cook and need a backup plan, because I do think DeAndre Washington can get right back in there. Chargers giving up the 11th most points to back, so pretty friendly matchup here for the guy. I do worry a little bit about the Chargers getting a huge lead on the Raiders. The Raiders really seem to have quit. You can't win at home. You can't be motivated enough to beat the fucking pathetic Jaguars at home for the last time ever. Then you probably quit on the season. Still, even if they get blown out, Washington stayed involved last time. I still think he's very usable, very viable, a top 20 running back, and a very strong flex play if you needed a fill-in for, say, Chris Godwin or something of that nature. After him, speaking of Chris Godwin, he didn't practice today, and he has already been ruled out for the week with his hamstring injury and unlikely to play the rest of the season. What is the point of trotting him out, risking further injury, further tear if he, week 17? So at this point, you can safely cut him. And unlike most cuts this year, it's not a hate cut, it's a love cut. It's a goodbye. It's not a goodbye. See you later. Hopefully next year. One of the best 4th-round picks. Finished 2nd in the league in yardage as of right now. 5th in receptions. 9 touchdowns. We're tied for 2nd. And only trails Mike Thomas right now in terms of fantasy points and fantasy points per game. Nearly 20 half PPR points per game. The guy was an absolute monster. But we got to move on now. Evans is out now. Godwin's out. 2 top 5 fantasy receivers. What's the aftermath? Well, Perriman really stepped up last week. 3 touchdowns, over 100 yards, his first career game with that. He's right into my wide receiver 18 role. He's not just the complete shoo-in for top 5 numbers. I think a lot of people assume he is. He's that big body. He's got the speed. He can do everything a number 1 wide receiver should. He's never just been able to consistently put it together, which has me a little nervous. Now he's also going to be drawing the top coverage of defenses. Now they're going to have a week of game tape to see his signals, to see what got him shaken up so free. So I do love Perriman. Again, top 20 wide receiver play in a good matchup against Houston, in a matchup that should be a shootout this coming week. Deshaun Watson's going to put up his points. Hopkins and Will Fuller are going to go berserk against the team giving up the most points to wide receivers. But it's not quite the free space everybody seems to be thinking it is. Again, starting him over Edelman, starting him over a lot of guys that you would never have ever thought would be possible. So if you have a Perriman question, get it on in. I'd be happy to answer it for you because the upside is astronomical. You saw it last week, but still, don't just assume it's not a potential trap because he could end up getting completely shut down. I would also look towards Justin Watson. He's an upside wide receiver 3 in my opinion, my wide receiver 40, drawing the secondary coverage here of this awful secondary. I would not be shocked if he ends up being the guy that ends up truly blowing up. Big body, runs a 4.4, 40-inch vertical, athletic freak, led the team in air yards just 2 weeks ago when Evans got knocked out. Then Scotty Miller kind of threw in a wrench last week. A lot of people got off the Watson train. I'm still a believer. I still think he can get it done here in Week 16. Other injuries to track. Dak Prescott, of course, is crucial, but Jerry Jones said he's going to be in top form against the Eagles. Yay, thanks, Jerry. I didn't know you were a trainer there for us. Fucking loser. But ultimately, he's going to play. This game, the division's on the line, one of the most important games in Cowboys history, especially of recent memory. And they got to beat down the Eagles here, or else they leave themselves vulnerable to losing that division, losing that playoff berth. So Dak's going to be out there, whether he's hampered or not with that shoulder injury, remains to be seen. But he seemed okay. He roped a couple deep balls last week. Can't imagine he put too much more damage on there after only having to attempt 20 passes. You could see maybe a little bit of a run-heavier script, but against the Eagles, it's much more of that funnel defense, not quite the level of the Bucs, but still a great run D and a horrendous secondary. I imagine that Dak Prescott will be back to form. I think Amari Cooper will go off. I like Michael Gallup a lot this week, and Dak's top 7 quarterback in my opinion, as he's been all year. A huge fan of him. Biggest Pro Bowl snub, by the way, in my opinion. At the running back position, Kerryon Johnson seems set to return. He said he hopes to play in Week 16. The Athletics reporting that he's expected to be there. The question of all this, though, is what's the workload and can David Blau actually sustain an offense worth investing in the first place? if you've made it this far, there's no real reason to risk getting carry on your lineup. But if you were desperate and Dalvin Cook's left you stranded, he's out there in most leagues right now. We saw him have nearly double-digit points in every single game that he was active. A great talent, and no one else has really stepped up to threaten his volume. I wouldn't be shocked if he goes right in and gets another 15-plus touches out there in the waiver wire in a lot of leagues. Not a great matchup against Denver, but still should be there. Can get some receiving work in there, too, out of the backfield. If you're desperate, take a quick look there. Damian Williams, also at the running back, ribs. He did practice, limited fashion, both Wednesday and Thursday. Seems likely to suit up. You weren't using these running backs anyways. It's already a three-headed nightmare since Ware joined the fray, and now a four-headed nightmare potentially. Move on, ignore the Chiefs. It's just another feather in the cap of avoid this backfield completely. Last, but a couple more quick ones to get to, and then I'm going to get right to your questions before high or lower Hail Mary. Julian Edelman did remain limited for Wednesday's practice. I'm real nervous about this guy. When we get to lower, we're going to be talking about him a bit, but he did not look healthy at all against Cincinnati. Held to by far his worst game, under 2 fantasy points. So if you had Edelman, I don't know if you made it this far anyways, but I'd have a real hard time getting him in the lineups, especially with juicy options like Brashad Perriman so widely available. I'd be huge. The matchup itself is already tough, but the fact that he's got knee and shoulder injuries that were definitely limiting him last time out makes me nervous for Julian Edelman's outlook. Not a fan of him this week. We got Will Grier starting at quarterback for the against the Colts here for the Panthers. That throws a decent wrench into guys like DJ Moore, who've been so steady, so consistent. Now, could Grier be that big of a drop-off from Kyle Allen? Well, the fact that he couldn't beat him out in the first place is definitely a little nerve-wracking because Allen was clearly horrendous. But how far down can you go? Even with that awful Kyle Allen, DJ Moore has been a top 7 wide receiver, particularly of late. And you got to imagine he continues to ball out, continues to be consistent. His separation has been absurd this year, and you just hope Grier locks on him like Kyle Allen has locked on him so far. That is the risk. What if Grier decides he prefers Curtis Samuel or the tight ends? You don't know for sure, but I still have DJ Moore in my top 20 wide receivers. I'm getting a lot of Perriman versus Moore. You'd be so much more pissed at yourself if you played Perriman over Moore, and then Perriman crapped himself versus Moore, who's almost gotten you there single-handedly at wide receiver. A clear wide receiver one. You got to keep him in your lineups. DJ Chark remained limited at practice. He is running routes. He's on the field doing some limited work. And if he's out there, you get a great matchup against Atlanta, giving up nearly 260 yards in the air. That's 9th worst in the league here. So DJ Chark, a top 10 wide receiver, well out there in terms of points per game. A couple injuries have hampered that and limited the ultimate final stat line for the guy. But he's a beast. Him and Minshew have a great rapport. So if he's out there, top 20, number 21 rather, in my rankings, assuming he plays. Aguilar likely to be out. All that means is another Greg Ward show. Was the only wide receiver to catch a ball with Carson Wentz last week. Saw 9 targets, scored. Tough matchup against Cowboys on paper, but not all that intimidating. And again, besides the tight ends, there's no one else there to throw to, and Boston Scott, of course, as well. So Greg Ward, my top 45 wide receivers, definitely a streamer if you're desperate, still only 6% owned, so check out for him. And last 2 notes here, Juju did practice in full. I would never trust him at this point in my lineups. He hasn't shown any type of rapport. He hasn't been out there. All this really does to me is he can't really use James Washington or Deontay Johnson, who might have been intriguing streamers after getting it done these last couple weeks. Now it's a 3-headed, where's the ball going type of nightmare. Despite that juicy match against the Jets, not really trusting any of these guys. Now Gerald Everett, of course, as soon as Higbee becomes 3 straight 100-yard games, three straight games with 7+ catches, over 15 fantasy points in 3 straight. The number 2 tight end since he took over as the clear-cut starter. Now Everett practices in full and is expected to be out there. Oh man, he's been so good. Do you bench him at this point? I don't know. Big risk, but I have guys like Hollister and other streamers above Higbee, just because I'm nervous they return to that committee where you couldn't predict anything going on. Let's get to your questions, guys. Giuseppe asking, flex half PPR, pick 2, DJ Moore, Brashad Perriman, DJ Chark or OBJ, or drop OBJ for Ward and play him. I'm not dropping him for Ward. And if your opponent picked up OBJ and he finally had that blow up, then you'd be so fucking pissed. Like, I'd be much more nervous about facing OBJ than Ward. But I probably don't have OBJ in my lineup here. I'm going to go Moore, and I'm going to go Perriman. And I'm probably benching Chark and OBJ there. I love the upside of Perriman. DJ Moore, I just told you, yes, Greer makes me nervous, but not nervous enough to bench for those other guys who have equally as big, if not worse, question marks. I have Cook and got Madison and Boone, thank God. Yeah, so you needed that, Giuseppe. That's huge because of that Monday night factor here. Flex, Carry-On or Shepard, Edelman, Sterling Shepard, Gallup. I would definitely put Shepard in above Carry-On. He saw 11 targets last week. Granted, that was with Eli, but he still seems to be operating as the number one despite the impressive performances of Slayton and Tate there. The matchup isn't overly intimidating against Washington, giving up some of the most explosive plays in the pass game. 2 wide receivers, so I like Shepard this week. And Carry-On just such a big question mark. Between those other wide receivers, I like Gallup the most out of Shepard and Edelman. Again, I'm very low on Edelman this week. Very nervous about that injury. I would have Edelman probably above Shepard, though. So if it's like 2 out of 3, I just bank on that, him potentially surviving here. Gallup, Mike Williams, or Deebo Samuels as Jimmy. Oh, man. All have great cases this week. I lean Gallup, though. That Philly secondary giving up the 3rd most points to wide receivers. A little bit dinged up with Amari Cooper there. Wouldn't be shocked if Gallup, who draws number 2 coverage, ends up being that number 1 wide receiver and hauls in 120, 130 yards this week. Wolf, I survived Lamar, and now I'm taking on Jimmy. I love it. A Les versus Jimbo battle in the finals. That's fucking awesome. Here we go. Need the win to overcome last year's disappointment. Who's my flex? Sanders, Washington, Chark, Boone, or leftover tight end Andrews or Higbee? Ooh, baby. Well, I'm going to go Andrews over Higbee. As I just said, I'm a little nervous on the Gerald Everett return here. I'm not going to go double tight end there. To be honest, I kind of like DeAndre Washington. Now, if you told me Boone was locked in to that starting role here for Monday night, he'd be the play. I am nervous that Madison ends up taking it, or Cook just suits it up, sucks it up, and suddenly you got a useless flex. So to me, it's probably DeAndre Washington. Now, the full PPR makes it a little more nerve-wracking. I don't love Manny Sanders after this disappearing act and a tough match. I mean, Seattle not a hugely tough matchup, but so boom or bust. I'd rather chase that volume, go with the guaranteed 15 to 20 touches of DeAndre Washington. That's where I'm leaning now, Mike. Let me know what you were thinking, though. I'm intrigued to hear your take on it. Jose Vega, sit 1 of Parker, Keenan Allen, or A.J. Brown, full PPR. Whew. Keenan's my top option there against Oakland. I think he lights them up, especially in full PPR. He's going to haul in 9 balls, probably 100 yards. Just a matter of does he score. And then I'd have a real hard time benching Parker since he's a tough matchup. But A.J. Brown has been like the number 3 wide receiver in fantasy since Tannehill took over. He's got to draw Lattimore, who's really shut down top number 1 wide receivers. But Brown, Tannehill's so locked into. Oh, boy. Keenan's my top choice, Jose. Let me know who you're thinking between the other 2. But gun to my head, I think I have a little more faith in Parker there. And those of you tuned in, if you don't mind tossing a like to the broadcast, it greatly helps us get out there, gets discovered more. And even better than that would be if you drop us in any of your fantasy football groups or share it out to your audience. It means the world to us to continue to get discovered. And I do want to plug real quick, if you visit rotostreetjournal.com/tipjar, I hate to beg or ask for money. We haven't asked for a single cent since starting the site 3 years ago. But if we've helped you at all over these last 3 years, consider sending us a little Christmas thank you, because we're trying to take the site to the next step this off season and really do some things up huge, upgrade the website, make your experience even better, upgrade these broadcasts. So if you're willing to toss us even $1, $5, whatever it might be, it'd mean the world to us. So we can, all of it's going to go back into the business to get more discovery, to get better equipment, better, everything we need to upgrade. We haven't asked for any money, and it would mean the world to us if you're willing. If we've helped you at all these last 3 years, just consider visiting rotostreetjournal.com/tipjar and helping out the boys here. Back to your questions, though. Giuseppe, pick 1. Edelman, Pascal, Watson, or Conley. Tough options here. I'm guessing Watson, you mean Justin Watson. I got to go Edelman. I mean, I am nervous for him. He is out, 10 spots lower in my ECRs. We're going to talk about in a second. But out of those other options, I got to go with the talent there. Pick 1 wide receiver, 1 flex. Edelman, Perriman, Sanders, or Slayton, full PPR. Perriman's my favorite, and then I think Sanders is going to clock in next there, Jose. Comes down to Sanders versus Edelman for me, and I think I'm leaning Sanders. That's tough, though. That's real tough. And not a great matchup there either. I guess it's against the Rams, right? Like Sanders is probably going to draw Ramsey. Perriman's really the only one I have locked in there. But I guess I go Sanders next. Probably Edelman. Although I have a real bad feeling in my gut for him. And then flex, half PPR, Hyde, Hooper, Conley, Watson, Pascal. I lean... God. Tough matchup for Hyde. Tampa Bay's been so good against the run. Second least points to running backs. Much more of a pass game script there. I'm leaning Watson here. Justin Watson, one of my favorite streams. We're going to talk about why in a little bit, Giuseppe, but I really like Watson this week. Wentz, Philly Ribs, or Jimmy G. Man, you're fucking brutal today, Giuseppe. I'm going to lean off the top of my head Wentz, and just a game that means so much for both teams. They're going to bring out all the stops, so give me him. Drop Pascal for Watson. I would do that. Yeah, I don't like Pascal's matchup. Even though Bradbury might shadow T.Y. Hilton, which would open up Pascal a little bit, I still like Watson to go off. Worried about Dak? I'm not overly worried. No, Jimmy, I know the shoulder is a little nerve-wracking, but you have to have a very, very good second option for me to consider benching Dak. Omar, my dude, 2 finals. I'm pumped to hear it. Need 3 full PPR. Tyler Boyd, Perriman, DK, Fuller. Holy shit, you're stacked. I got to go Boyd there for sure. I can't bench DK again. A great matchup against Arizona. And then I like Fuller. I mean, I love Perriman this week, but that's 4 top 20 guys, and Perriman's the riskiest of them. So I'm going to bench him unless you're a huge underdog and you need to blow up, because his ceiling's probably the highest as that, the team's leading the league in air yards. But I'm going to lean Boyd, Metcalf, Fuller there. Nathan asking, Thielen, Perriman, Fuller, Miller, pick 3, please. So I'm going to bench one of them. It comes down to I'm locking in Perriman and Fuller. I love those matchups for both these guys. Back and forth shootout, I imagine. And then, the Chiefs have been a little bit susceptible to the slot. Thielen, though, a week healthier in a game that should be more close. They should need to lean on him more. I think I'm giving the nod to Thielen in that one. And then, Jimmy, I'm going to answer yours. Keep your questions coming in after Jimmy, guys. But I want to get on to the next segment here of higher, lower, Hail Mary. Hunter Henry or Hollister versus Arizona. Holy hell, that's a tough one. I do have Henry higher, safer, higher floor. But ceiling-wise, Hollister definitely has the 2-touchdown upside against Arizona. I'm going to be breaking both those guys down, Jimmy, in my higher, lower Hail Mary. So stick around, and I'll give you an evaluation on both of them when we get to tight ends. But we're going to start higher, lower Hail Mary with quarterbacks as we do every week. There's not a ton of parity between my quarterbacks this week in terms of at least hires. I have Breeze slightly higher than the ECR, QB4, fresh off an NFL record, 29 of 30, 1 incompletion the entire night against the Colts, 4 touchdowns. He's got 9 TDs in his last 2. Now, granted, these came at home, and there is definitely some splits about road Breeze versus home Breeze. He hasn't had any true blow-ups on the road yet this year, but this could easily be the one. It's a huge game for Tennessee. They're going to be bringing all the heat they possibly can, particularly on offense, which I hope creates a shootout-style game because that secondary is so dinged up. No Adoree Jackson, no Malcolm Butler. They're down to their 3rd, 4th corners who were out of the league last year. I think Breeze could pick them apart. He's going to be trying to extend. If he gets 4 more completions, it's going to be the most consecutive completions of all time. So motivated to break records right now. Again, 9 TDs in his last 2. I love Breeze this week, despite the road woes. Tennessee's really faced no one since they've got that dinged up secondary other than Mahomes, who had 446 and 3. Now Watson last week, he laid an egg, but I have much more faith in Breeze's line to keep him upright, to really stifle that pass rush there and give Breeze all day to throw. That was the risk with Watson, is that D-line got to him all day. I do think Breeze is going to have better protection and kind of sit back there and just pick off this awful secondary. My lower this week, and yes, you probably guessed this one if you tuned into this broadcast before, that's Aaron Rodgers. By QB 16, that's 4 below the ECR. So the experts are ranking him as a top 12 guy, a starter in your finals. Bench that motherfucker. What an absolute tool. 15 fantasy points or less in 9 of 14 games. 65% of the games he's been under 15. That is horrendous. He's really only had a few blowups, and they've been coming in obvious spots, and Minnesota is the furthest thing from an obvious spot, giving him the 10th fewest points. And, Rodgers has struggled all year with a terrible weapons cabinet out wide. Only Devontae Adams is really all that special. And even since he's returned, we've got plenty of 10-point duds. Under 200 yards in multiple games. Really hasn't topped 2 touchdowns since what was it? I guess the Giants game. Yes, obvious blowout spot. But other than that, 7 of the last 8 under 2 touchdowns. Just no real upside, despite it being Aaron Rodgers, unless it's in a juicy spot. And this is not in a juicy spot, so he'd be on my bench. I would not be in my championship lineups. Let me know if you have Rodgers and who you're debating with him, but not a fan of him by any means. My Hail Mary, a guy who I probably would even play above Rodgers, Drew Lock, only 6% owned, but my QB 17 of the week. He's only had 3 starts. Only one of those 3 have been actually useful. 25-point day against Houston. But last week, you got to give the guy a pass. Just torrential snow. His first time really playing in snow in his life. At least I assume based on his college and pro record here. And now he gets Detroit, who 6 of the last 9 quarterbacks have thrown 3 touchdowns against this team. And that includes Trubisky throwing 6 total touchdowns against these guys. His 2 starts against them. That's horrendous. The only ones that didn't were crap Haskins, crap Derek Carr. I think Cousins was in a blow-up game there. And we see this kind of moxie, this real willingness to sling it with Drew Lock. And Detroit gives up these huge plays routinely. I think Lock hits that 3-touchdown threshold. If you're in a 2 QB league or really desperate for a streamer, I like him. In terms of running back, my hire is DeAndre Washington. A lot of questions coming in, DeAndre Washington or blank. My answer is probably going to be DeAndre Washington. My running back 19, that's 12 spots higher than the ECR. He played 63% of the snaps in Week 14. The last time Jacob sat, he logged 20 touches despite game flow being a negative script for the guy. That included 7 targets, 6 receptions, over 20 PPR points, found the end zone, the goal line back. This guy's a bruiser. He's also playing for a contract. This is one of the last times he's going to have to showcase those abilities. I imagine he gets 15 to 20 touches yet again, even if the script gets flipped and is negative. Richard's nothing special. I expect them to really ride Washington here, and he's a top 20 running back in my opinion. Would have him in most lineups, especially as a Dalvin Cook or Josh Jacobs replacement. I'm lower on, and granted, when I say lower, he's still running back 13, but that's Leonard Fournette, who's in the top 7 of most. Now, he's been under 10 in 4 of his last 6 games, and that's with incredible usage. He's seen, almost 20 carries a game, seen a ton of receiving usage, 26 receptions in his last 4, the second best in the league, but he's so inefficient. He looks sluggish. He looks hampered. I know there's no injuries that have popped up, but it just seems like the season's wear and tear has really come down on this guy. And he's just a slug out there. Only 3 touchdowns on the season. This is a crap team. Atlanta's really kind of shored up that defense since the bye week. And since Dan Quinn relinquished the duties, they've been much more stifling to backs, to everybody really. And it's stingy right now. And you got to be loaded to really bench Fournette, still running back 13. But I have gotten some questions like Kamara, Chubb, Fournette, Aaron Jones. Which one do I bench? Most often I'm saying Fournette. I huge risk in my opinion. Again, 4 of his last 6 have been under 10 points. That's a big risk. Now, Hail Marys, do you really need a running back Hail Mary for your finals? I'm more likely to look at wide receiver for the blow-up potential, the long ball potential, if I need a Hail Mary. But if DeAndre has been scooped, if Mike Boone is gone, and you're just desperate upon all desperates for a running back too, Boston Scott's only 9% owned. He's seen 29 touches in his last 2 games, and that includes 13 receptions over that span. The game flow seems to me likely to favor that comeback type of script. And he's Darren Sproles. This is the role we saw with Sproles under Peterson. Peterson himself has said his ability to make people miss, to get into space is important for us. He really sparked our comeback win just a couple weeks ago on Monday night. We're going to continue to scheme up opportunities for him. I, again, like him to get another 10-plus touches. He's hit 10-plus fantasy points in back-to-back weeks, including 20 points just 2 weeks ago. I like him to get another 12, 13. Not a huge ceiling, but a decent floor, in my opinion, with the pass catchers so banged up there. On to wide receiver. I love Tyler Boyd. We had a question from Omar on him earlier. He's my wide receiver 14. That's a whopping 12 spots above the ECR, the expert consensus rankings there. Miami's down their top 3 corners. They've been getting bombed routinely, even when they're healthy. So an abysmal secondary gets even more abysmal. And Tyler Boyd, yeah, he's had his busts, but almost all of them came with Ryan Finley at quarterback or in brutally tough matchups. In general, when he's had Andy Dalton in easy matchups, he's been lights out 14, 17, 23, 30. He's got a 30-point game on his resume, and I wouldn't be shocked to see him get there again this week with a joke of a matchup with Dalton back. I think he's going to eat yet again. So Tyler Boyd, top 14 wide receiver in my opinion this week. Love him. Now, lower on, we've already talked about this a few times on the broadcast. Julian Edelman against Buffalo on Saturday. My wide receiver 25. That's 14 spots below his ECR. They rank him as a top 12 guy, a wide receiver 1 in the experts' eyes. Not for me. Normally he's matchup proof. He's had, over 10 fantasy points in all but 3 games this year. But one of those down ones was Buffalo. 4 catches for 30 yards. They already stifled him once, and now he's far more dinged up than he's ever been this entire season. Was not looking at all like his explosive tackle-breaking self against Cincinnati, his worst game of the year. I think he has another tough matchup. All they have to do is take him out. There's no one there to really take pressure off him. So, drawing doubles at less than 100% with a Brady that just, I hate to admit it, but kind of sucks this season as a whole, really. I'm nervous about Julian Edelman. I would be looking to other options like Brashad Perriman over him. Very nervous. My Hail Mary of the week, assuming Perriman's gone, it's his running mate, Justin Watson, versus Houston. My wide receiver 40, 15 spots higher than the ECR, only 6% owned. I think he is going to be blowing up. And I get that he was in a blow-up spot last week. A lot of people are now off him because he failed to deliver on expectations. But Scotty Miller came back, threw a wrench in that, started over him, limited his snap totals. Now Scotty Miller's out. Chris Godwin's also out. There's really no one else to put out there other than Perriman and Justin Watson. And with Perriman drawing the top coverage, I would not be shocked at all to see Watson sneak in there for some huge plays. The last time he was forced in the lineup for a meaningful amount of snaps, that was when Mike Evans got knocked out because Scotty Miller was not yet back, and Watson led the team with 90 air yards in the second half. He hauled in 59 of them. Also scored. He's runs a 4.4 at 6'3", 220, so a big body that also can leap to a 40-inch vertical. He fills that Mike Evans role to perfection. That's how he was used immediately upon being inserted. And, the stats are just insane. This team is leading the Bucs in terms of air yards. That no risk it, no biscuit style offense has really come to fruition here under Bruce Arians. Nobody likes to sling it more than Jameis Winston. They have 5,624 intended air yards, almost 1,000 yards more than Dak Prescott's 4,788. So you got to fire up the meaningful parts here. I don't think that offense just suddenly changes gears and gets conservative here despite all the injuries. I think Justin Watson, even if O.J. Howard gets more involved, even if, the running backs are a little bit more leaned upon here, I like Justin Watson to find the end zone and have himself a real solid game. That's my Hail Mary. Now, tight end, and then it's on to your questions the rest of the show. So get them in now, folks. I will be answering every single sit-start, open mailbag the rest of the time here. But tight ends I'm higher on. This is tough because I got a question about Henry versus Hollister. Those are my 2 hires this week. Henry, I've got tight end 4 spots above the ECR. He's facing Oakland, who's giving up the 3rd most points to the position, behind only Seattle, and of course Arizona, the blueprint, the flow chart, lock 'em in style defense. But Hunter Henry, 10 points in 5 of his last 7. You are got to be a little nervous. I agree about the 2 complete duds, 1 and 2 points in the 2 games that weren't above 10 fantasy points. And no, he hasn't really blown up in any of those. It's been right around the 10 to 12 range. He hasn't topped 12 points in any of those. But if ever a time is right to blow up, it's against Oakland, who surrendered tons of touchdowns to the tight end position. I could see Henry finding the end zone at least once to get that nice 10-plus point floor at tight end. And if he hits it twice, then you got yourself a monster day. But I do love Jared Hollister against Arizona. My tight end 10, 3 spots higher than the ECR, so I am higher on Henry for those asking Henry versus Hollister. But if you're going for just pure ceiling, no one's as higher than Hollister this week. That's because of Arizona, by far the most points to tight ends, nearly a touchdown and a half a game against the position. And you know how much the Seattle Seahawks love targeting tight ends in the red zone. It has not happened for Hollister over 3, maybe even 4 straight weeks now. Been a complete dud, but nothing says get right. There's no antidote quite like an Arizona Cardinals matchup. I think he easily, especially being so overdue, because the usage has been there. He's seen the targets. He's gotten open in the red zone. He's been overthrown once. He's been missed, but despite being wide open once. And he just hasn't hauled down a couple of the big, the contested ones. But this should be the matchup to get him right. I really think him and Russell Wilson connect for at least 1 score, if not 2 here, against that pathetic Arizona defense. And then last but not least, who am I lower on? That's Tyler Higbee. How could you be lower on this guy, Wolf? Holy shit, you moron. He's been 7+ catches in 3 straight. He's got 107+ yards and 15+ fantasy points in 3 straight weeks. You're telling me to bench this guy, Wolf? Are you a moron? Yes. But also, you got to look at what's happening here. Gerald Everett's coming back, and when those two played together, Higbee was by far the distant second, did not have a single game above 5 fantasy points with Everett out there. And yes, his incredible play here, led the team in targets 2 straight weeks, 12 catches last week. I get it that, yes, he's probably earned that number 1 role, but you have no idea how the usage is going to shake out between these two guys. This is the week that streak is broken, and right when you need him the most, right when you've come to rely on Higbee, I wouldn't be shocked to see him abandon you because of Everett's return, because of the matchup too here. We're just talking about San Fran, who hasn't really given anything up to any tight ends all year, and now it's a committee against this 31st points allowed at the position. Give me Hollister if you have both guys. I'll take the matchup. I'll take the secure every down role here after Everett practiced in full. And also, I'm lower on Hooper. I have a hard time putting in my lineups since he's returned only 4.2 and 3.5 half PPR points. He's my tight end 14, 7 spots below the ECR. Give me a Hail Mary like Noah Fant. That's my Hail Mary of the week, speaking of transitions. Tight end 11, 3 spots higher than his ECR. Blew up just 2 weeks ago for almost 20 fantasy points, 113 yards and a TD against Houston. He gets the deep yardage, deep scheme balls. Drew Lock loves to target him down the seams, and he's making some very difficult grabs. So I would be benching guys like Austin Hooper for Noah Fant. If that gives you any perspective. Now back to your questions, guys. Oh, it was Jimmy Parsons asking about those two, not Omar. My fault there. But again, Henry, unless you need that true huge blow up. I'm favored now by 10. I also have Jameis at QB. I don't know what the good. Nice, Omar. Do you have a sit start at QB or what you doing there, my friend? Hunter White asks PPR. Nathan Chronister. I'm gonna lean White there with Edelman dinged up. And the one spot Buffalo is a little susceptible to is running back, the 9th most points to backs on the year. I think White, back-to-back very useful games, such a key cog in the passing attack. I like James White here. I have Cook and Madison. Opponent snaked me on Boone, so I'm left with Freeman or Washington if neither Cook is out. Who do you like? I have Washington higher, but there is that case for Freeman facing Jacksonville, the worst on DVOA. Team is completely quit, so I can see Freeman really lighting it up. But I just don't buy in on him as a talent anymore. He looks sluggish, looks old, looks dinged up. And Atlanta's probably just going to chalk. That's how they've gotten it done all year. So I'm more into DeAndre Washington. I think a better bet, a higher floor, equal ceilings in my opinion. Damn, Austin. Hopefully you can tune in after the fact. Miss having you here for the broadcast. Curtis Samuel or Ronald Jones, asked Jeremiah. I'm going to go Ronald Jones here. I don't like Samuel at all. And plus Will Grier. Maybe there's the sneaky upside of what if he's Grier's boy. Yeah, that exists here. But I do think Tampa Bay leans on the running game, both, just in terms of sheer rushing volume, but also in the pass game with so many injuries at wide receiver. And the matchup is good with Houston giving up the most receiving points to running backs right now. I think Ronald Jones gets involved as a pass catcher and is a good bet to find the end zone. That's where I lean. Windsor, need help at QB, Breeze or Mahomes? Oof. You don't need help at QB. You got 2 incredible options there, my friend. I've gotten this question also from a couple other guys. I'm leaning Breeze now. The road Breeze makes me nervous. Mahomes off a great game, but Chicago, very good against every position, including quarterbacks. Breeze facing a secondary that's on their third and fourth corners. In an offensive game, 50.5 over/under total. So the second highest total of the week. I think a ton of points will be put up. The guy's had 9 touchdowns in his last 2 weeks. I just don't see how you sit Breeze in a good matchup despite the road inconsistency, those road splits. I still lean Breeze there. Washington or Watson, PPR. I'm going to go DeAndre Washington. I think you're asking for your flex, Nathan. And granted, I said I love Watson as a blow-up. I still go with the sure bet for volume there. If you're talking about James Washington, again, you got to clarify these types of things. I'm going to go Watson over James Washington now that Juju's back. But ultimately, if it's DeAndre Washington, that's where I'm leaning. I'm going to go with the back there. Also, another championship with Brady or Trubisky at QB. Oh, God, that's hideous, dude. Come on, Sean. We got to have is there any option on the waivers? Give me Drew Lock over both guys, if that helps. But if not, I'm going to go with the rushing outside of Trubisky. How gross is that? I just don't trust Brady, who's been bad as a talent, now in the second hardest matchup for quarterbacks, and his top weapons dinged up. I just do not see Brady having a decent day here. So if those are your only 2 options, give me Trubisky in the rushing upside there. But I lean Drew Lock, who's only 6% owned. I think he's got some huge upside. You asked me if it was favored earlier. Oh, gotcha. Your wide receiver question. So you are the favorite, so I think you side with the safety there, and the riskiest bet would be Perriman. And then if you're starting Winston, you're going all in on that attack, and what if they just run the ball out? Would not be my favorite play there, Omar. Alrighty, guys. Week 16, it's here. It's the championship week. We will be live on Saturday before your 1 o'clocks. We'll be live again on Sunday. So doubling up this week, and for good reason. You got to get it right. There's no turning back on Week 16, and you need to have the championship because no one gives a fuck about your second place finish. So let's get it done, Wolfpack. Let's cap off an awesome season. I appreciate all your support so much throughout the year. You guys have been incredible. And one last plug. Again, don't mean to seem like a beggar, but if we've helped you at all, we really want to take things to the next level, and we'd love for you to be a part of that to help us get what we need to do to get there. All the money's going to go into the business. I'm not pocketing any of it. We just want to take it to the next step. And if so, rotostreetjournal.com/tipjar is where you can check out if we've helped you at all and you're willing to share any percent of your winnings or just send us a thank you. It means the world. And even if you can't donate, there's a testimonial form out there that would mean the world to fill so we can spread how we're doing, give us a little review of ourselves. That just means the world. So check out, again, rotostreetjournal.com/tipjar. It'd be awesome. Whether you contribute any money, a testimonial, or both would be huge. And sorry, Omar, we don't have the app on Android too. Only on Apple right now. You're not missing anything. And I appreciate that, my friend. We'll hopefully by this time next year have it up on Android. Denver or KC defense, asks Jose. I'm going to lean Denver there. I do not trust David Blau. Sucks. He blows. But Kansas City also in a good spot here. They've been red hot. I'm still going to go Denver at home there, Jose. Alrighty, guys. Best of luck Week 16. Hopefully we'll see you on Saturday and or Sunday for the last couple broadcasts of the year. Wolfpack, you guys are the best, and I am out.